Hold on to your hats. This could be interesting.
Welcome to TCBI Questions, the show where we ask the tough questions and the not so tough questions totally at random. And joining me today is Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. The rules are that there's no skips unless the question doesn't apply to you or the answer will only be one sentence because that's not really very interesting. And adult language is acceptable if you need it to answer the question.
Okay, got it.
All right, and I'm going to kick us off with a starter question.
Okay.
Do you squeeze the toothpaste tube or roll it? And what is the advantage of your method?
I squeeze the toothpaste, but it's because I'm a barbarian and I never remember to roll. I fully admit that rolling it is the superior method, but I just don't. I don't know why. I guess that's my basic answer. I should roll, and I think now I'll be a little bit more conscious of it.
Yeah, I'm like you. I tend to forget, and it's like, all right, time to go to work. Oh crap, I haven't brushed my teeth. Quick, let's rush in and do that, and all the tips and tricks just go out the window. It's like, right, I just need to get toothpaste onto the toothbrush so I can brush my teeth.
Yeah, I'll roll back on the roll, whenever it's about to be empty. But every time I do that, I'm like, this could have been a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, go ahead and pick a category for us.
Okay, I guess I'll do 100 fathoms. As you fall asleep, do I read or do you read?
Yes, so you're asking me this question because you picked it.
Perfect. Sorry, Dan. As you fall asleep, do you prefer to be flat on your back, curled on your side, or on your stomach? Which position are you in when you wake up?
I usually fall asleep on my side because I've just put my phone away. I tend to sit on Reddit for an hour or so when I go to bed because that's just the kind of the ritual that I've fallen into.
Gotta have your Reddit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tend to wake up in that same position because it's me kind of reaching out for my phone, which has got the alarm going off, going, shut up.
Well, I fall asleep, I would say probably more often than not my side. I have narcolepsy. So I'm basically like, when I lay in bed, give me I don't know, a minute tops and I'm already out.
Wow.
And as far as waking up goes, I'd imagine on my side, I'm told that I roll around a lot when I sleep, but I'd say more often than not side. I don't really like to lay on my back too often.
Fair enough. Yeah, I sometimes I'll end up on my stomach, which is not very comfortable. But
no, not
sometimes you just, it's like, I can't get to sleep. Let's try a different position. And sometimes that works. I always find that I have to be lying on the same side as well. And if I am forced to lie on the opposite side for some reason, I actually get a sore arm. I can't remember what it was, but there was some reason that I had to sleep on my other side. Oh, that's right. I was having some chest problems and I couldn't breathe lying on my normal side. So I spent probably about a week lying on the other side, and my arm was so sore because I just wasn't used to having my whole body on it.
Yeah, I have a separate pillow that I'll use. So if I'm laying on my side to prop my arm up, that way I'm not putting all my weight on that shoulder and kind of get it out from under you.
Yeah, I guess that's, the shoulder that I usually lie on is used to it, but the other one certainly isn't.
Cool.
All right.
You're up, Dan.
What silly thing have you done in the name of love?
Ooh, silly thing in the name of love. I would say either for friendship or love, I have no problem humiliating myself in the name of making someone laugh. So let's see. I'm trying to think of a particular instance where I did something very silly. One time my wife was she was at work and she had texted me something that she was having a bad day. And so I called her. She was working at a call center. So I had to call her work and basically I did a really, really bad fake accent and convinced the call operator that got me that my wife had helped me with an issue previous to that. And so they transferred me because my accent was so bad. And then I just made goofy accents and inside jokes to help cheer her up while she just pretended to not actually know it was me, because she would have gotten in trouble.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, no, I'm always looking for the gag and, looking for the joke in all situations, and I'll do anything for a laugh, which includes, making myself look stupid. But yeah, in the name of love, yeah. I don't really can't really think of anything off the top of my head, and
It's hard to come up with a specific instance. Us
Yeah.
being on the phone like this made me think of the phone. I think
Yeah.
had we been talking in person, I wouldn't have come up with anything.
Yeah, I can't think of, because when I first read the question, I was thinking kind of, what stupid thing might you have done, because you are in love with someone, like singing, singing your love from the top of a tree, kind of thing. But yeah, no, I definitely like your interpretation of the question better, where it's, that kind of being silly and,
it is fun to be silly.
yes, and especially when whoever you're being silly around is embarrassed by it, that's always entertaining.
It does add a fun extra layer to it.
Yeah, someone said, "Going, no, stop it," but it's funny. Yeah, well, funny for me.
Let's see here. I guess are the 500, 1,000 fathoms, are those really that different, or they get like more intense? Or
Yeah, so the fathoms is kind of a play on the depths of the ocean. So the more fathoms it is, the deeper the question.
All right, here we'll dip our toes a little deeper. Go for a 500. What causes you to get flustered?
It used to be public speaking, and still if I get put on the spot, and I have to talk in front of a big group of people, because I tend to need time to collect my thoughts. Doing this podcast has kind of forced me to think on my feet a bit more, which has been kind of valuable, actually. But I don't like being put on the spot, especially in front of groups of people. That tends to cause me to get flustered. So yeah, and often I'll go, my answer is this, and then 10 minutes later I'll come back and go, actually, what I said was completely wrong, and here's what I actually think. But you put me on the spot, so I kind of just winged it, and it was wrong.
It's interesting that you hate being put on the spot, and this entire podcast revolves around the idea that we're coming up with questions instantly to put the other sort of on the spot.
Yeah, it's this podcast has definitely put me out of my comfort zone, and it's been good.
That's pretty smart of you. I mean, that's a great way. Most people will find something that they're uncomfortable with and just realize that they need to avoid that for the rest of your life. But you kind of, this couldn't be more on the spot unless you just walked into a pub and were like, here's what we're doing.
Yeah, and couldn't be more public either, because I'm, kind of putting it on the internet for anybody to listen to.
Yeah. I've always really enjoyed public speaking. In fact, when I was younger, I actually really wanted to get into politics, but that's just because I thought it was like giving speeches to people. I didn't know about the rest of it, so I'm really glad I didn't follow that. But yeah, I've always enjoyed public speaking. Okay, so my turn. What causes me to get flustered? I would have to say when there's something I don't understand. I'm pretty decent about getting on Google and figuring out things that I need to know. But if there's something I simply like if the car is messed up and it exceeds the limits of what my mind is capable of fixing, which is not much, I'll fix a tire, change the oil, a couple other tricks, and I'm about done. That's definitely something that flusters me when I guess I would say not even that I don't know how to do it, because I'm happy to research and learn, but when I'm unable to even identify what the problem is something that gets me very flustered.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common thing, isn't it? And yeah, it's still kind of being put on the spot. Being given something that you don't have an answer for.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dan, let's see what you got for me here.
What is your greatest physical challenge?
I guess that would actually be right now, not sitting in the chair talking to you. I'm not exactly physically strained. About 6 months ago, I started working out for the first time seriously since like high school. I'm 30 now. and I weighed close to 260 pounds. Worked out for 2 months, lost like 5 pounds, and was like, okay, I just worked way too hard. I need to start doing a diet and real exercise. So I started doing that, and I've been doing that for about 4 months now. And I'm down in the 180s. So I've
Oh,
lost.
well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I've lost over 50 pounds now, little over 50 pounds, which is weird. I still need to finish replacing all my shirts. My little brother, I always wore like baggy, relaxed jeans, and my brother was talking to me. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. My brother was talking to me. His name is Josh, and Josh was saying that, okay, now that you're skinny, I need to take you pants shopping. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he just goes, I hate your pants. And apparently he and the rest of my family hate that I wore like these baggy pants. It's just what I was comfortable in. And now he took me shopping, and now my entire pants are all like skinny jeans, which are something never in my life did I ever think I would wear. Ever. But they're kind of cool. I have not replaced any of my shirts though, so half of my shirts kind of look like parachutes on me now.
Yeah, that's quite an achievement, being able to, look down and go, hey, I'm actually wearing skinny jeans.
Yeah, it's weird. I have some like, clothes in there from high school that, were just sentimental. Like I was on the high school wrestling team shirt, and I hadn't worn that shirt in forever, but I always just kept it. And now it's like really like my shirt from high school is baggy on me, which is weird. Yeah, it's very bizarre.
That's a real achievement.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. I started doing it was on Reddit, the keto diet that they have on there. It's super popular on Reddit. And I've been doing that for 4 months and doing the P90X workout programs, and here I am.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same for me, actually. We bought an elliptical machine, and it's kind of just sat in the other room for a couple of months, and I just haven't got around to it.
Sure.
But it's definitely it's going to be, my New Year's resolution, even though those tend not to really go anywhere. I'm going to give it a go anyway.
A tip on the New Year's resolution. I learned this when I was a kid, and it actually helped. Start your New Year's resolution like 2 or 3 weeks early. Because then by the time the new year comes, it's already sort of a habit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know I'm telling you to get on the elliptical sooner, which no man ever wants to do. But it actually, because you start off with momentum, and because at the new year, you're like, this year I'm going to blah, and I'm going to blah, and I'm going to blah, and you're so pumped about it. But if you already start doing it, like that energy you get, like that new year boost, which from the calendar only comes once a year, you can take it so much further.
Yeah, so you're kind of just boosting the thing that's already happening rather than using it to start.
Yeah. And it kind of removes that from the back of your mind where you're like, oh, when I get home, I'm going to this. And like in the back of your mind, you're like, no, I'm just going to take off my pants and watch Netflix. But if you're already doing it, when you say that, you mean it more. And then you do it. There's an interesting thing that our brain does. In my free time, I'm a writer, and I was struggling with it for a while. And I started learning about like how the brain worked. And there's this interesting thing that when your brain says, I'm going to do something, like if you say, when I get home, I'm going to do 100 push-ups. There's a small chemical in your brain that is released, and internet land, you can check this out. I don't know the name of it. Maybe I'm making up this article, but I'm pretty sure I read it, that releases in your brain that gives you satisfaction, like the chemical that is satisfaction, and you feel that. And people that talk about doing things and don't actually do them kind of live just off of that feeling their brain gives them, and you can skate by without ever actually having to do the thing that you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
So if you are really serious about, I want to work out or I want to whatever, don't talk about it and just do it, because you're not going to get that like pleasure center in your brain going.
Yeah, I can definitely see that in myself. I'll say, I'm going to do this when I get home, and then I don't do it. And it's like, never mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would do that every single day. I'd sit at my desk and be like, man, when I get home, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And I'd get home and be like, no, never mind. But I had psyched myself up, and then I would just get depressed about it.
Yeah, because then you're kind of letting yourself down as well. It's like, I said I was going to do all these things, but instead I've spent 3 hours on YouTube.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, very good.
All right. Let's see. I think my turn, right, Dan?
There is.
See, that was fun. I'll do another 500. If you could give one gift to your children, what would it be? Do you have children, Dan?
I don't, but I actually have a kind of future-looking answer for this one.
Oh, okay.
One of the podcasts I really love is Grown Ups Read Things They Wrote as Kids.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've heard of it or not, but basically people get up on stage with, diaries or letters or whatever that they did when they were, kind of 5 to 15 kind of range.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like it's just amazing being able to go back and look. And I think the gift that I would give my children is to actually encourage them to keep that kind of record. Whether it be a diary or writing or videos or a blog or whatever it could be. But actually the gift is to have the foresight to get them to keep that record so when they grow up they can look back.
Yeah. That is a great answer. And I say that not only because it's a great answer, but that was also pretty close to what I was going to answer. I have like nothing from my childhood. And I had a great childhood. I just didn't keep anything. And like now, most of my siblings and I are pretty creative individuals, but as kids we weren't. Like my brother makes board games. We never did that as kids. Like I am a comic book writer, and I'm actually now I'm testing out a new microphone here. I'm getting ready to start producing my own audio drama because I'm obsessed with them and I love them. But as a kid, none of us were creative. And we've talked about it, look back, and we're just like, what did we do? And we just kind of sit around and play video games. And other than like a catalog of favorite video games we have, I don't really remember, and cartoons, I don't remember a lot from my childhood. And so that is something I would want to do, like just to better document it so that as an adult, they could look back and remember some of that, drive and interest they had as a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a podcast that I wouldn't mind starting as well, because it's a stage show over there. It kind of is limited to that geographical area. So I think it'd be an interesting thing to do, kind of a more worldwide one. Because listening to especially like people writing in their journals about first loves and all that kind of thing and drama with friends, it's just so fascinating to hear it from a child's mind.
Yeah.
Because it's just so completely different to how adults deal with things.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I'll have to check out that podcast. What did you say it was called?
Grown Ups Read Things They Wrote as Kids.
Got it. Yes, my keyboard is insanely loud.
Yes.
And saved. Okay. Awesome. Got it.
Are you more inclined to build your own empire or unleash the potential of others and explain?
Ooh. Interesting. Are you more inclined to build your own empire or unleash the potential of others? I would have to say it's probably the greedy answer, but I would say build your own empire. Like I said, I make comic books. I've started doing, other things like a novel, board game, audio drama. And my favorite thing to do in the world is tell stories. I just, there's nothing like it. I just love telling stories. And if I had to have a empire, it would be something related to that. And I'd probably prioritize it over, unleashing the potentials of others. I would hope that in a way, the things that I built would inspire people to unleash their own potential. But honestly, I think when it came to this particular question, I'd probably just be greedy and focus on myself. Who doesn't want an empire?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to cheat and say both, because as much as I like building other people up and I spend an inordinate amount of time doing that, I also have a lot of, I guess, ambition, and there's all these things that I'd love to do. And if I could do them, that would mean I'd be self-employed and I could work when I want and how I want, and maybe not so much an empire as just a good solid setup for myself that means that I can, be my own boss and not necessarily an empire, because that sounds like a lot of work.
That does sound like a lot of work. I've played Civilization. It's not easy. There's a lot of taxes and stuff you got to think about. So maybe I'll pull back and just have what's the name for a tiny empire?
I'm not sure.
Is there a word for that?
Yeah.
There's got to be a word for that. Listeners, find out the word for tiny empire and let Dan know.
Yeah, no,
All right,
I know exactly what you mean there.
Let's see here. If you could redecorate your home at no cost, what would you wish to do?
First thing I'd do is repaint the front of our house because it's a really gross yellow.
Okay.
I don't know what the people were thinking that painted it yellow, but it's just horrible.
How long have you lived there?
A year and a half.
Okay.
And it's not something that would even be that expensive, but I just haven't got around to it. And then I'd probably replace the carpet because it's getting a bit sad and not very springy. And I'm kind of interested to know what's under the carpet as well, because I have no idea. So we can't get underneath our house.
So you don't know if it's wood, tile, no clue?
No clue, because we can't get our house is pretty much on the ground, so I can't actually get underneath to see what's there. So that'd be quite interesting.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, you could always just cut up a tiny little corner and then just take a peek.
Yeah.
Just
it is
find
tempting.
a corner that no one else in your family will ever check. Put a dresser on top of it or something when you're done. You can solve that mystery in your life, Dan.
Yeah, and then we'll move out and there'll be this square of carpet that's been cut
weird
out.
Little square. They're gonna think there's some kind of hidden safe back there. What you do is you put a piece of paper under it that just says "You found my secret," and that person for the rest of their lives will wonder what that meant.
Wow. Yeah, that would be quite a funny trick to play on someone.
For me, I would add a deck onto my house. I love to barbecue. I barbecue pretty much any meal that I decide I'm actually going to cook. I just really, really enjoy it. It would be nice to have like a nice shaded area on top of like raised deck. So that would be what my modification.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, no, I enjoy being able to barbecue as well, but there's not really anywhere to do that at this house. But yeah, there's just something about food that you take a normal meal and instead of using a fry pan, use the barbecue, and it's just fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah. Where are you from, Dan, by the way?
I'm based in New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay. I'm in Austin, Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's 2:30 p.m. here at the time of recording.
7:30 here.
And probably yesterday because it's Sunday here.
Yep, correct.
Yay, time
This is the part
zones.
where I'm supposed to make a bad joke about sending me winning lotto numbers or something.
Yeah.
I think that's something we are by nature forced to say, and I'm sorry that you have to hear that all the time.
Yeah, because New Zealand's as far forward as you can get. So yeah, I hear it constantly.
Well, I'm sure. And even though I knew it was terrible, I at least had to reference that I was aware of it. It's like this innate thing. I just couldn't avoid it.
Yeah, that seems to be a pretty common theme. All right. Let's see. Let's go up to 1,000. Do you think there will ever be world peace? Why or why not?
Ooh, interesting. My gut says no, but ever is a very, very long time. I guess you have to look at exactly what peace is. I mean, technically, if we all got nuked, there would be peace because we'd all be dead, right?
Yeah.
So, eventually we'll all just burn off, and the world itself would be on some level of peace. But then again, you'd still have animals fighting, probably. So, I'm derailing here while I think, but I would have to say probably not. Well, if I kick this up, this is a conversation I've had where let's say outer space aliens show up, right? outer space aliens show up. This happens a lot in sci-fi books and movies. All of a sudden, Earth, we quit thinking like, oh, I don't like this group of people. And they start finding that like brotherly love real quick. So I would say barring an extraterrestrial threat, probably not. And if that threat were to show up, I think that piece would come more out of desperation and in preparation for some like galactic war or something. Or I might just be spending too much time reading sci-fi books.
That's all right. That's where my mind went as well, because I read and watch a lot of sci-fi as well. But I'm not sure, even if you could call that world peace, if there's peace, on Earth, but everyone is off fighting this alien instead. Or, cities are getting destroyed by these aliens. I'm not sure that it would be worth the price of, having cooperation amongst all the nations of the world.
Yeah. And by no means do I say like I'm knowledgeable about history, but I enjoy it. Like I really enjoy the Hardcore History podcast. And, we've had several thousand years to figure that out. And it's not like, oh, there was peace here, but then this happened. Like, since that's never been a thing in the world, theoretically was a lot smaller than it is now, only because of like how interconnected we all are now. If it wasn't going to happen back when like all you had was like a couple villages and then you didn't know anyone else existed, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, and yet, you see it in sci-fi, like for example, Star Trek, where, the need for money has been wiped out, and that's a pretty major contribution to all the war and everything at the moment, apart from differences in beliefs, whether that be religious or otherwise. Money is the thing that often causes the lack of peace.
Yeah definitely.
So elimination of scarcity and money and everything like that would actually make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I just clicked the button. Here we go, Dan. What impossible task are you facing right now?
I've kind of been thinking for a while about taking my business out and, actually turning it into something I can live off. But
okay,
it's seemingly impossible at the moment because things seem to be working against me. I've had a couple of customers get hold of me and go, so we're cutting costs, and that includes your costs. And
that's unfortunate.
These are customers that have been with me for years, and then suddenly, just as I've started like talking with friends and family about, taking the business full time, these people have suddenly started to go, actually, we need to cut some costs. So as much as we love your service, we're going to have to cut it back. And I'm going, well, there goes, a fair chunk of the motivation that I had to
sure.
Yeah.
So look at all these loyal clients. Never mind. Yeah, that's terrible, Dan.
Yeah.
What is your business? What do you want to do? Or is it with the podcasting?
No, the podcasting is, I do the podcasting kind of as part of the business, but it's a gigantic loss center. I mostly do it for fun. I do IT consulting and server management, mostly looking after kind of big, like 1 million plus hits a month, websites that need, 20 servers to run, that kind of thing.
Okay. Very cool. Well, shame on those customers. I hope you get to do that full time. I mean, it sounds like something you're really into.
Yeah, because I'd be able to, it's that, like 4-hour workday rather than the 8-hour workday. That's kind of my aim, to be able to then use the other 4 hours to do things like this podcasting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, let's see here. So the impossible task I'm facing, that question is heavier hitting now than it would be most other points in my life. My wife of 5 years and I have decided to divorce.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I moved out of the house 5 or 6 months ago, and staying with a buddy of mine for a little bit. January, I'll grab my own place. It's very incredibly unfortunate. Like she's a great person. It was more my choice to end things. There was just a lot of things going on there. The short version is, I don't know how much I should get in this. This is on the internet. You know what, internet, here we go. It's honesty time, and you can't skip a question. My wife struggled a lot with alcohol for quite a while, and she's now actually, as of Sunday, I think, a year sober, which is freaking awesome.
Yeah, good for her.
Seriously, like she started doing the AA thing. It didn't work out. And she was like, no, I can do it on my own. And she kind of relapsed. And then just a year and a few days ago, she got really serious about it and started going to AA. And I am incredibly, incredibly proud of her for doing it. Unfortunately, just kind of along that road, a lot of damage was done. And try to look past it as I may, I just kind of hit my end with it. And so I guess because of that, we've decided to go ahead and part ways. Since moving out, like it was really, really rough, but I think we're both doing better. And we've been able to see each other and have conversations that are actually like pretty decent and enjoyable. And, you know, like I thought it would be incredibly terrible and awkward, but we still seem to get along, even though that whole, like the actual relationship itself has kind of dissipated, I guess. So as shitty as it is, it's one of the better examples of a divorce that I've ever heard.
Yeah, being able to, you know, stay civil and not completely lose that person that you spent so much time with from your life entirely does make things a lot smoother.
Yeah, it really does. And, you know, thankfully we had no kids or anything, no, large assets. There's been very little arguing about who gets what and all that. So, you know, it's super shitty that it's happening, but it's probably one of the, easier ones.
Well, at least you can, you can see the upside to it. And in the end, as hard as it is, it sounds like it will be the best thing for you, for both of you.
Yeah, it will be for both of us. It'll just take us some time till we both truly feel that way, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. When's the last time you had to give a speech and how did it go?
Like I said earlier, I actually really enjoy speaking in public.
Yeah.
The last one I did would have been at the last Comic-Con I did. On weekends when I can, I'll do like 20 or so, maybe 15 or so a year, where I'll go to Comic-Cons to sell the comic books I made. Listeners, if you're curious, it's overtimecomics.com. Sorry, Dan, couldn't miss the opportunity for a plug.
Fair enough.
I'll send you that link later.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I make comics, and when I go to them, not always, but typically they'll have panels where people can like ask you questions. And I do a panel called From Scratch to Finish, where in an hour and a half, I basically spitball my 7 years of knowledge in comic books at you. So hopefully you can just, I'll tell stories of like the really, really good things I did and then the really, really stupid things, hopefully skipping people ahead by a few years in mistakes and knowledge and giving them a lot of resources. And then I kind of Q&A it. And it went great. I've never really had a bad one. To me, the only bad time I do one of those is when the audience isn't interacting. Like if they're just sitting there, it's really boring because they're just listening to me. But when they do that, I've got a couple like fun exercises I do that kind of get them engaged because I prefer to do it more like a conversation than let me just prattle on at you. Like if I wanted to do that, I could just send them a PowerPoint file. They wouldn't need Like the worst thing is when someone's just reading from their PowerPoint because you can read way faster than they can talk.
Yeah, so you already read the whole slide while they're still reading the first line.
Yeah, exactly. It's the worst. It's the worst. So I have a couple of pieces of paper and I'll just jot down some dots, talk to them. And in case y'all are curious what I do when they're not interacting, there's a lot of theories on storytelling and, like, do you have to have like, how solid is it to have like a good idea or, things like that. Jim Butcher is a great writer. He did the Dresden Files series, super popular, super amazing. He was on a panel with some people. And they said, well, your idea is the most important thing. And it has to be a really, really good idea. And Jim Butcher's like, no. It's about how you approach it. You can have a terrible idea, just the worst idea. And you can make a really good story about it if you approach it right. And so he made a bet with one of the guys. He's like, well, give me a couple things that you want me to write something about. And I'll write like a really good short story. And the guy goes, okay, Pokemon and the Roman Legion. And Jim Butcher was like, okay. And he wrote a short story and he goes, ooh, I really like this. And he turned it into a 6-series epic fantasy that was that got him published.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called Cauldron of Fury. And they're fantastic. It's like if the Roman Legion had Pokemon.
That sounds so cool.
It's a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun. And that's one of my favorite stories about writing that I've ever heard. So I'll do something like that. I'll be like, all right, guys, we're going to spitball something for two demons. This is one that I actually did. It was so much fun. I'm like, okay, there are two demons. They're sitting around in hell, and they decide, hey, we need to go to Earth. What are some reasons they would need to go to Earth? And everyone was like really nervous. And so I was like, what's the stupidest thing I can come up with? Because if I come up with something really stupid, they'll feel better about saying their idea. So the first thing I thought of was that they were watching soccer and they disagreed with a call the ref made. And everyone laughed. And they're like, yeah, they were like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I said, good. Now tell me yours, because it's not as bad as that one. And so they said a couple. And then one girl, this little girl, she was like 9 years old, said their love letter got lost in the mail.
Wow.
And I said, that's fantastic. Let's go with that. And so I said, okay, now we have two demons. There's a love letter lost in the mail. What are they going to do to get the love letter back? And then a couple other people, they had random ideas. And then we randomly picked one of those and then kept going. And I did that for like 10 minutes. And then I stopped it and continued with everything I was doing. But at that point, they were used to talking to me. And it changed the entire dynamic of the speech and the whole presentation.
Oh, cool. That is an excellent technique.
It works really well because I think people, not everyone, of course. I'm very extrovert. I totally understand some people do not want, they just want to sit there and listen, and that's fine. That's why I don't call on people. But if you give them the opportunity, I think most people like to show off that they can do something like that. And this goes back to, what's the silliest thing you've done? Like the silliest thing I could think of was a soccer game. And so I said it because I'm like, well, and then one guy was like, there's a war they want to help with. And that's kind of a generic answer because, demons like war, but it's an answer. He wasn't saying that before. So that's a small victory to get them. And it's a really fun technique.
Yeah, for me, it's actually probably at high school, which is going on 10 years ago now. I hated giving speeches in high school because you'd have to come up with a topic and, it would have to be something that kind of vaguely interested everyone in the class, and it was just terrible. I can sit here and answer these questions all day, and that's pretty much what I've done this weekend. I think you're the 8th or 9th recording that I've done this weekend. But having, I remember one of the topics I did was the love of money is the root of all evil. And that was just horrible because I didn't care about it and no one else did either. But yet I had to talk for 3 or 5 minutes about it and it was just terrible.
It's tough when they're like assigned and it's something that you don't care about. Like that's not an enjoyable thing.
Yeah, these days, give me something that I enjoy talking about, like podcasting or Star Trek or something like that, and I'll talk to you for hours.
Sure. Let's see. Alrighty, for 500. In what circumstances do your motor skills short circuit your verbal skills and vice versa?
I have to interpret the question first.
First we'll puzzle away the question.
Yeah. It kind of made me think of just like brain short circuits, like really weird things happening.
Okay.
So maybe not motor skills short circuiting, but thinking like, you're doing something, you go, how did I end up here? My brain's really good at autopiloting, especially when I'm driving the car, and I'll be
you beat me to it, Dan. I was going to say that. There have been so many times I've stepped outside the car at work, and I just go, I don't remember driving here.
Yeah, and for me, it's because I'll drive the same way to work every morning, and if for some reason I need to go to the supermarket on the way to work, I'll miss the turn and have to stop and turn around because 30 seconds after I've missed the turn, I've gone, oh, there's the autopilot again.
That's kind of how I interpreted the question, and that's the same thing for me. I don't know how many times I've just autopiloted drive something, and especially in Texas, we have these terrible, terrible things everywhere called U-turns. If some places don't even have them. But I mean, essentially anywhere we go, every street practically is a highway in Austin. To get anywhere, you pretty much have to jump on one highway or another. And what you do is you overshoot where you're going, and then you turn around to get there. And if you miss an exit, you're going at least 2 more miles out of your way to get the next one. So it's very extra costly to autopilot here, but I do it all the time.
Yeah, and I think the other case where autopilot kind of kicks in is when you're walking somewhere with someone and you're both following each other. You end up in the strangest of places.
Yeah.
I remember
Absolutely.
one time at school, I was walking out of school with a friend and we ended up at the bike sheds, and neither of us had a bike, but we both thought we were following each other to the bike sheds, so that's where we ended up.
Did you hang out at the bike place, or did you take off when you realized that neither of you needed to be there?
We got there and, we kind of just stood there and went, so why are we here? And then we just walked away.
That's great.
All right, this is the final question. Growing up, what was your favorite fairy tale or children's story and why?
Oh, man. We've been talking about stories this whole time. This is like the perfect question. Yeah. Well done, man. Growing up as a kid, I devoured any story I could get my hands on. Any cartoon and things, I just absolutely love them all. I'm going to stick with like the fairy tale and children's story and not just be like, oh, this one abstract cartoon. I'd have to say Peter Pan. I adore the story of Peter Pan. I've watched and enjoyed practically every variant of it they've ever made. I actually had written one of the first stories I ever wrote was so when someone's learning how to draw, you draw the things you like, right? Like if you want to draw comics, you'll start drawing Spider-Man, things like that. One of the first stories I ever wrote when I was really young, and I kind of started, not very young, I was probably like early teens, but I thought that I might want to get into storytelling. I wrote a story based off of the movie Hook. And it was about how Rufio took over after Peter left. And there was like this other guy who took over first, and Rufio was a really timid character and all this stuff. And I don't know, I've just always been really, really into the story and the legend of Peter Pan. I've read every adaptation of it. Brahms, like The Child Thief, the opening chapter is really weird and super rapey and terrible. Like, skip it, but because it has nothing to do with the rest of the book. But the rest of the book is awesome. Yeah. So short answer, Peter Pan, and there's a long rant about why, I guess.
I can't actually think of a particular children's story or fairy tale. What I do know is that I very quickly kind of moved away from reading children's books. I was one of those kids that had the library card that as a child let me get books out from the adult side of the library. And I would always be getting out like reference books and things. Like they had this, holiday program kind of thing where you had to, read a book and then go and sit down with a librarian and do a review on it. And they kind of gave me a special dispensation to do nonfiction books.
Oh, cool.
Because normally they'd expect you to read a storybook or something, because this is aimed at like primary, like elementary age children.
And you were reading nonfiction. What kind of nonfiction?
The one that really sticks out to me was a book on home automation. This is like, a 9-year-old kid reading about, like X10 home automation and, controlling your lights and all that kind of stuff. And I did a book review on that.
No wonder you're an IT.
Yeah, it's
I don't know what it is, man. It's probably just the whole, I want to write and I love stories. I can't read nonfiction for the life of me. I will read nonfiction if it's like, I need to fix this on my car. I'll read this manual. Or that most recently, though, there is a nonfiction book I read, which surprised the hell out of me that I did it. It was the biography of Alexander Hamilton, because I listened to it's probably the first nonfiction book most of America has read in a while.
Yes.
But after the musical came out, it became a huge hit. I loved the songs, and I was like, I want to know more about this dude. And I ended up reading that book. I wish I read more nonfiction, but every time I'm like, oh, I want to pick up this book and read it. It sounds really interesting and it's about real stuff. I end up reading about more fantasy books. It just keeps happening. Also, maybe I should make it a New Year's resolution. I could start one now and, already in the new year, be started on a nonfiction.
At least with, biographies, it's stories about people rather than, kind of technical manuals.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That was kind of my, I hate to use the word justification, but that's the word that comes to my mind. Like, I need a reason to read a nonfiction.
Yeah, and that's because you get to read all these stories about people's lives, which is incredibly fascinating. Yeah. As much as you like writing stories, and telling stories, I like listening to stories.
Awesome.
I've had Notepad open and I've written down a couple more podcast networks that you'll probably be interested in. That's all stories.
Oh, yeah. I've been really big into the audio drama scene. I can send you a list of like my top 20 like great audio drama stories, and if you enjoy listening to stories, I know some really great ones to enjoy.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. So that'd be great.
We can, you know what? Send me your list. I'll send you mine, and let's post it with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll let the listeners see this like crazy story stuff we're talking about too.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely
you guys
fascinating.
Can peek behind our voices here.
All right, that is us all done. So thanks very much. This has been absolutely fascinating.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. I had a great time, and listeners that are listening, don't just be listeners. Come do this. Like, I'm just a dude. Nothing special. He made a post on Reddit, and I was like, yeah, why not? Like, get a hold of Dan. This was fun.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan.
If you'd like to be on the show, you can go to tcbi.nz/guest form and sign up. Anybody is welcome to sign up, and I would love to talk with you. And until next time, to our listeners, add one friend to one episode of this podcast with two open minds and see where it leads. Thanks for listening.
Now that was interesting. Bye-bye.